Thank you all for joining us here at IE Sports, where today we have missed basically the majority of February, which, well, it's been pretty lackluster minus this week. So we've got some news to catch up on for the month of February. So, guys, thank you again, as usual, for joining us here at I-80 Sports. Joining us here at I-80 Sports. Make sure you subscribe down below, youtube.com/I-80 Sports. And while you're here, hit the bell notification so that way you know when all of our content goes live. And comment down below with what you think of a lot of the different news that we're going to be talking about this week. And we've got quite a bit of things that we've got to talk about. We're a week out from the trade deadline, which feels like, this season has felt both very long and very short at the same time. Long for some, like myself, who's a Devils fan. Very short for Tom, who is a Rangers fan.
I wouldn't say that much. It definitely has not felt short. It's felt nice, but there's still a lot of concerns here.
Well, this feels like the longest season ever, and wow, I am already ready for the season to be over at this point. But comment down below with what your thoughts on from the I would say news of the week, but also news of the month, because minus this week, it's been a pretty slow February in general in the NHL. We had the All-Star break, and then afterwards, really not much. So this week, things have really picked up, so we felt compelled to come back with a new video. And if you're still on X, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. If you follow us already, thank you guys so much, because we greatly value all of your support. But as usual, I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing better, and I just want to apologize. We were actually going to do this last week. I was a victim to the neurovirus. I was very, very sick for about a week. I don't know if I caught it at the Stadium Series. I don't know if I caught it at a Pantera concert. I don't know if I caught it somewhere in between. But I was very, very sick last Sunday. The sickest I've been in a while, believe it or not, and was still functional enough to actually get up and do human things. But that thing was no joke, man. And if anybody out there has it, I apologize, man. Just drink plenty of water, lay in bed, watch as much TV as you can, and just try not to do anything, really.
Pretty much, yeah. That neurovirus is no joke whatsoever. Went through my entire family, and just a rough time in general. And that virus has been going around for months now. So if you get it, as Tom said, literally do anything else, besides being a productive human being. Just literally just lay in bed, be a slug, drink nothing but water, catch up on whatever your favorite show that you've been meaning to binge watch. For me, it's been Shoresy, but even still, just catch up on whatever you need to catch up on, because you don't make any plans. But it's funny because Tom, segued on this one. So before we get to our top news of the week, I figured we would kind of start a little bit differently today, because Tom and I both had a little bit of a once-in-a-lifetime experience for us a few weeks ago, because Tom had mentioned that he went to the Stadium Series game, Rangers versus the Islanders, on that Sunday, February 18th. And for me, February 17th, that Saturday night, I went to see the Devils Flyers Stadium Series game. So, Tom, I'm going to throw this one over to you. What were your thoughts on the Stadium Series in general? How do you feel that the NHL presented it? Positive, negatives? What'd you think?
I mean, in terms of the presentation, I think they did an okay job. The park theme was a little weird. I felt bad for that poor dog getting walked back and forth in freezing cold temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I didn't like was that I feel like they skimped out on like the mini ice rinks they used to make, the mini ponds rinks they made to play pond hockey, and turned it into like a street hockey court. I didn't really like that much. It's cold enough to put some more ice down. Put some more ice down. It's for ice hockey, Do it that way. I didn't care for the MetLife security either. Not letting my one friend in with a phone charger that you were always allowed to bring in. Now they didn't let him bring it in. I made us take it back to the car. It took a lot of people forever to get in. A lot of us didn't get in until midway through the first period, including myself, when the Islanders were up 3-1. But once we got past that, it was a good game. Rangers were down 3-1. We're down 4-2. We're down 5-3. Came back and won in overtime, man, and I was freaking walking on air coming out of there. I'll tell you what. That was something like I have never seen before. And that Ranger Islander outdoor game might go down as the greatest outdoor game of all time. That was just that was. I was there, and if I can admit I was there, I can show you pictures or whatever. But that's one of those ones that somebody will say they were there, and 10 million other people who said they weren't there will tell you they were there too. That was a hell of a game, man. That was a lot of fun. Outside of the MetLife security, the game itself was good. The inside of the stadium was fine. Not a lot of problems. It was very easy getting in and out of the parking lot. So for the most part, it was excuse me. For the most part, it was okay.
Yeah, and then from my experience, I mean, I'm to echo Tom's point. Yeah, MetLife security was not bad. They certainly did their best of keeping everybody in the actual facility safe. They went through their checks and balances. Getting into the stadium was on the easier side. There were lines getting in, and it was certainly packed at MetLife that Saturday night. The reported attendance was over 72,000 that night, which pretty crazy because most Devils games are roughly about 16 to 20,000 on a given night. So for me being a Devils fan, like kind of seeing that many people in one place besides like a football game or baseball game was kind of amazing to me. It was kind of cool. MetLife security dropped the ball getting out of the stadium for me because getting into the stadium, easy breezy, not too bad. There were lines. That was to be expected, though, because, I mean, obviously, I had to go in to see the Jonas Brothers. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Not go see how do you not go see the Jonas Brothers? All right. In all actuality, I was strong armed by my wife, happy life. But getting out of the stadium, getting out of that line, it was kind of annoying, not gonna lie, because like I felt like you had a lot of security after the game. You had a lot of people, a lot of police presence. A lot of times when I would go to a game at the old Continental Airlines Arena, Brendan Byrne Arena, Meadowlands Stadium, however you want to remember it as, I felt like getting out of there, although difficult, there was still more presence of police officers kind of directing lines, directing traffic. That Saturday night, there were just cops literally just standing and just, shooting the breeze with each other. Really not a lot of police direction, not a lot of direction to get out of the lot. It wasn't that bad, but it was still kind of irksome to me of just like, all right, you have this much presence. Why aren't we using it? So that's little things. The game itself, amazing. Probably the high point of the Devil season. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Overall, I like the jerseys. I thought they were easy to see. I was sitting in the 200 section and pretty easy to see from my vantage point. I could see the numbers. I could see, pretty clearly which player was doing what. The on ice noises were projected pretty well within the stadium itself. I thankfully couldn't hear the Jonas Brothers that well, just because they were facing away from me from the stage. So that was actually a plus on my end. Overall, just positive experience. One thing I will say, though, I think a lot of Devils and Flyers fans learned a very valuable drinking lesson that night, and that is, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Because I saw a lot of messy people that night. A lot of messy people. There was one individual sitting next to me who was a Devils fan. He had the spin so bad by the end of the game that, like, in the last 10 minutes of the game, he was just, sitting there with his hands over his face. I felt awful for the poor guy. But, hey, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
It is.
You got to learn.
It is, and I was not smart. I did my sprint after the game because I was so wound up that the Rangers won. Mm-hmm. I did my sprinting after the game.
Did you at least get home first before the sprint?
Oh no, well, to be honest with you, I made the decision after going to a concert there in the summertime that I would never drive there again.
Valid.
So I met up with a friend of mine who lives in North Arlington at Newark Penn Station. I have to train up. I live down in Keyport. Hazard Station's right by my house.
Yeah.
So I took public transportation to and from the game, had a Trader Joe's bag full of beer that was still fairly full after the big 6-5 Rangers win. And, well, you all know what can happen with that.
It wasn't very full by the end of that game, if at all.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
And then not having to go, because it was a Sunday after the Ranger game was a Sunday afternoon game. The following day was a holiday. I had off of work the following day. So I hung out with my friends in the lot, and, well, you already know what would have happened. If I would have
Yeah.
had to work that Monday, I would have been right on that platform in MetLife Stadium, getting on that train and going home after it was over.
Yeah, understandable that you wanted to have a little bit of fun, though, for sure. I mean,
Yeah, hell yeah.
still plenty of people around me that were doing the same thing, waiting it out. My wife, had a pretty splitting migraine by the time that game was over. So we just opted to just leave like right from there. So, took a little bit getting home, but it was fine. Overall, though, I got to say, I thought the NHL did a really good job with the Stadium Series overall in New Jersey. And I think if there's one thing that this has kind of proved, it's, give the metropolitan area more opportunities for stadium games like these. Give us a Winter Classic at some point, because we can easily sell out MetLife Stadium. We can easily sell out Yankee Stadium,
Were you
and
there at Yankee Stadium 10 years ago?
I didn't get to go 10 years ago.
Yeah. I
Didn't get
went
to
to
go.
both of them. That was a good time as well.
I heard that game specifically was so cold, though. And I actually got to say, I bundled up really, really nicely for that game. It was freezing that night. It was very cold.
Oh, yeah. You had to bundle up. Even Sunday, the afternoon game, the lot was worse in the stadium, but you still couldn't go in there like today wearing a T-shirt and shorts. It's in the 60s today in Jersey.
Yeah, no, this is a nice little spring preview today, as you will. And yeah, it felt really nice to walk around in T-shirt and shorts today, but that day you definitely couldn't have done that.
Oh,
And
absolutely not.
yeah, as Tom said, it was way colder in the lot than it was in the stadium. Just the sheer amount of, I guess, people that you were surrounded by kind of helped boost that body heat a little bit more. But
oh yeah, we were jumping around like maniacs after the game. 20-year-old me. The last 5 minutes, I'm 36. The last 5 minutes of that third period, 20-year-old me showed up.
Yeah, me and some buddies were jumping around for that Devils win 6-3 against the Flyers that night. And yeah, to kind of wrap this all in a nice little bow, it was a really fun experience. It was really cool. I'd never been to an outdoor hockey game like this before. I hope I get the chance to do it again at some point because it was so much fun. It was a ton of fun. It was great. If you didn't get the opportunity to do this, and if it ever rolls around again, seriously, do it. If you're that type of person that is like on the fence of like, I don't know, give it a shot. Go with friends, like go with people that you're comfortable with. Have a fun time. Remember my advice. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And yeah, just remember these words from your old Uncle Brian on this one. So in the meanwhile, we're going to move on to some news of the week. Let's hit up that traffic report.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
So it's difficult to kind of know where to start on this one because we had quite a bit of news over the past week and a half that we need to react to. And I'm really not going to go in any particular order here. I'm just going to kind of jump around a little bit. Tom's going to try to follow me the best that he can, but oh well. I'm going to go with a little bit more recent to start off with. We had some contract extensions in the NHL over this past weekend. We had recently today, we're recording on Sunday, March 3rd right now. New York Rangers have re-signed and extended Jonathan Quick on a 1-year deal. I believe it's for $1.15 million. My instant reaction to this, it's a great move. Jonathan Quick has had a renaissance year this year. He's really picked up for where Igor Shesterkin has kind of lacked at certain moments of this season and has really done such a nice job. This was inevitable for the Rangers, correct, Tom?
Yeah, definitely correct. He's definitely picked up for where Igor has slacked. Igor did slack in December and January. Igor lately has been lights out. But it's a nice insurance policy. It's nice to know that you don't have to start Igor a million games in a row, and knowing that you have him as a backup again next year, it works out all for the best. So I like this deal all around. I really, really do.
Yeah, and just pulling up his stats from Hockey Reference, in 21 games played this season for Jonathan Quick, he's 13-5-2 this past season. He has a 2.45 goals against, a .916 save percentage. He's done a really, really nice job in limited minutes and limited time. And I say limited time, but realistically speaking, 21 games is not really that limited. If you really consider and you really think, the Rangers did a really good job, signing Jonathan Quick in the offseason to begin with as well, because this is a team that wants to be taken more seriously as a championship contender and have that pedigree. And in Jonathan Quick's case, who better can you ask of than Jonathan Quick in terms of his Stanley Cup pedigree? He's been a part of 3 separate Stanley Cup teams, and people are quick to say, wait, 3 Stanley Cup teams?
Yeah, the third one didn't really count.
Third one didn't really count, but he was along for the ride, so that still counts in that regard. But realistically, 2 Stanley Cups were really because of him. 2012 and 2014. Sorry to me. Sorry to Tom.
I'd say 12 more than 14. 14, it was more of his teammates picking him up. But
yeah. 12, he utterly stonewalled the Devils in 2012, and every other opponent that they went up against. They were the best team, bar none, in that season.
I just still can't believe how stacked those Kings teams were, but that's besides the point.
And actually it's hilarious because you got the Kings starting to think of a nostalgia act. They've been knocking on the door of the Devils, talking about Tyler Toffoli a little bit, allegedly. There's been rumors that they could be barking up that tree. We'll get to that in a little bit, but Jonathan Quick extended for 1 year. Good move by the Rangers overall. It was inevitable. We had another extension that we got to talk about here. The Vancouver Canucks have finally extended forward Elias Pettersson to an 8-year deal at a staggering $11 million cap hit per year. And Tom, I'm going to get your reaction on this one first, because I know in my mind I was bracing for this extension to happen. We've been hearing rumblings over the past few weeks that this deal is getting done. Other rumblings saying it's not getting done. They could be shopping him, but I knew that this deal was going to get done. I just feel like it could be a little rich for Vancouver's blood. What do you think?
I don't think it is rich, to tell you the truth. Excuse me. Vancouver Canucks throughout history have screwed things up with their top players. Pettersson is in the elite company of a guy like Pavel Bore, the Sedin twins, guys like that, Marcus Naslund. For anybody who thought that they would trade him, they were nuts. I think he's worth the money. He's the best player the Canucks have had since probably the Sedins. The Canucks are having their best season in how long? And you're going to trade this guy away? Forget about it. You got to keep him. You got to keep him. People may say it's a little rich. You got to keep this guy around. You can make your case for JT Miller all you want. Elias Pettersson's the best player on the Canucks. Now, I don't know if the Canucks will win the Stanley Cup this year. I think that they're still very green. I still think the Canucks are probably in for a rude awakening in round 1 or 2. But at the same time, you need something to build off of. And keeping him there is something to build off of. So I like the deal. You got to keep him there. You have to. In the history of a franchise who has done things, excuse my French, ass backwards throughout the years, this is finally something that's not ass backwards.
No, and that's true. And, if you're really honestly thinking with the Vancouver Canucks that he was going to get dealt, it was never, ever, ever going to happen. He's been the heart and soul of this Vancouver team. This offense is built around realistically 3 guys. Vancouver's offense is built around Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, and Quinn Hughes, and then built on the back of Thatcher Demko and net as well.
Probably make a case for Brock Besser in there too.
You can absolutely make that case for Brock Besser as well. I'm thinking more realistically of the players that really make the plays actually happen. Brock Besser is a great finisher. Brock Besser is absolutely a great finisher, though. In Elias Pettersson's case, stats for this season thus far: 75 points in 62 games played, 29 goals, 46 assists. And that's all in about an average of 19 and a half minutes a night. That's not even near the upper echelon of the minutes that other players in the league, such as Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, guys like that are getting. He's getting 75 points in 62 games with 3 or 4 less minutes a night than those guys. And it's pretty staggering to see. So I think you had to make this move. You had to sign him to that rigid deal. You had to give him, the flowers that he finally deserved. And it also makes sense for why they dealt Bo Horvat when they did last year, because they knew that realistically speaking, they were going to have to give this deal to Elias Pettersson. It was inevitable. They had to They had to shell out for sure. Now, I do just want to check cap friendly real quick in Vancouver's case just to see what their cap situation is going to look like, after this year. Because obviously this cap doesn't impact them now at the moment. However, next year that $11 million contract hits, and you've got to start thinking of some guys that are UFAs after this year that maybe you're not going to be able to sign after this year. I'm looking at that entire defense, and you've got to make some decisions here. Make a decision on Nikita Zadorov, Ian Cole, Mark Friedman, Tyler Myers, Matt Irwin, their backup goaltender to Thatcher Demko, Casey DeSmith. Do you let him go if he doesn't take a friendly deal? Elias Lindholm, who you just recently acquired from the Calgary Flames. Is he a true rental at this point with this signing? So you do have some, questions for the offseason if you're Vancouver. But, I think in Vancouver's case, they're just going to ride this out at this point. They're going to figure it out down the line. This is a later on issue. You've locked up your guy, and then you move on from here, and then you just kind of hope that, everything ends up working out in the end. But overall, my thoughts here, it's a good signing. I think he's getting the proper amount of money, and I think he's going to keep aging like fine wine for the Vancouver Canucks. I think he's still going to be, over a point per game player over the extent of his contract. I think Vancouver has really nailed it with this one, and especially because when it comes to hometown players, they don't always nail it. So it's a big win for Vancouver fans for sure. Moving on from here, we had a few trades that did go down this past week as well. I do want to get some details real quick and just pull up some details before actually saying the exact details of this trade. Well, we're going to start with the Chris Tanev trade first here. So the Dallas Stars have acquired Chris Tanev from the Calgary Flames in a kind of bizarre 3-team trade here. But what does Calgary receive in this trade? Calgary receives defensive prospect. I'm going to butcher this name. Artem Grushnikov. I think it's Grushnikov. Might be Grushnikov. And the Stars' second-round pick in 2024. And they've also received a conditional third-round pick in 2026. If the Stars do not advance to the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals, the Flames do not receive that third-round pick. So, realistically speaking, if the Stars do make it, because it's a very large possibility that they could make it to the Stanley Cup Final, the Flames would only be giving up, or rather, Dallas would only be giving up Grushnikov and a second-round pick this year. Obviously, like I said, if they make it to the Stanley Cup Final, then that third-round pick in 2026 also goes their way. So then, where's the third team come into play here? Well, here's the deal. 50% of Tanev's salary was retained by the Calgary Flames. Calgary called New Jersey to retain another 25% of Chris Tanev's salary to make this work. So what New Jersey receives in this deal, because of that, they get a fourth-round pick in 2026 in this deal for retaining 25% of Chris Tanev's salary for the remainder of this year, which works out to be about a little over $1 million that they're retaining in this. Instant reactions here, Tom. Does Dallas win this trade? Does this make them a bona fide Stanley Cup contender?
You know what? I believe it does. And let me just say, it's kind of akin to the things they used to do back in the 90s. Now, if you go back in the 90s, especially in 1999 and 2000, when they would play against Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference Finals, you look at those two teams up top. Colorado's top two centers were Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg. Dallas's top two centers were guys like Mike Modano and Joe Nieuwendyk. No disrespect to either one of them. Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg are better than those guys. But you want to know what won Dallas that series and what got Dallas that cup in 99? Their depth. Their depth. You look at guys like the guys that they had, like Darryl Sador, Craig Ludwig, Sean Chambers, Pat Verbeek, Guy Carbonell, Mike Keane, Brian Screwdale. I can go on and on and on here. It doesn't really matter. Fact is that Dallas has always strived with their depth throughout history. And this is yet another deal where that's what they're doing. They might not be as top-heavy as a team like Colorado or Winnipeg or Edmonton, because Edmonton is just the king of top-heavy, or even Vegas with Jack Eichel. But what's going to win Dallas playoff series and what might win Dallas that Stanley Cup is depth players like this, like Chris Tanev. Whereas maybe Colorado doesn't have a guy like that. Edmonton definitely doesn't have a guy like that. Maybe Winnipeg doesn't have anybody of that caliber. And maybe at the end of the day, if you get to a 7-game series against a team like the Colorado Avalanche and you win that series in 7, and everybody knows Nathan McKinnon is a better hockey player than Jason Robertson, but maybe, just maybe on the back end, your difference in that series might be Chris Tanev. Just like Daryl Sador was that difference back in the 90s. So I like the trade for Dallas. They're smart. They know what they're doing. Dallas definitely knows what they're doing with this trade, and it makes them a lot better. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, overall, I think this is a great trade for Dallas overall. It makes them a lot scarier of a team, going down the line. I mean, Chris Tanev figures in probably on the second or third pairing for the Dallas Stars moving forward on that right-hand side. He's not having a world-breaking year. He's got a goal in let me actually confirm. Goal and 13 assists on the season so far. He's not a world-breaking defenseman, but what he brings to the Dallas Stars is defensive responsibility, and he's tough as nails, which, in the playoffs, you need sandpaper. And Chris Tanev is the perfect level of sandpaper, responsible sandpaper for Dallas. And I honestly, I love this deal for Dallas. You know that there are some teams out there that are absolutely kicking themselves not being able to pick up Chris Tanev. I know if you're Toronto, you're kicking yourself a little bit by not being able to make this deal work. If you're Edmonton, you're kicking yourself by not making this deal work. If you're New Jersey, you're kicking yourself twice because this is a move that you could have made weeks ago. But yeah, Dallas, great move for New Jersey, retaining $1 million and getting a 4th-round pick in a few years that you could use in a package deal for when you're really ready to ramp up again. Great move by New Jersey, getting a 4th-round pick for just taking on $1 million for the remainder of the year. Awesome job. I do like the package that Calgary gets for Chris Tanev here. You get a 2nd-round pick and you get a good defensive prospect. You get to load up again. I think Calgary in the next few years, this could be a quicker turnaround than a lot of people realize for Calgary. Truth be told, they haven't been that bad a team regardless this season. But they still had to cast off the guys that they've needed to cast off. This is also probably not done. We're going to be talking a little bit more about trade deadline a little bit later. And I think a lot of teams are going to be kind of waiting with bated breath on what Calgary does before other teams start making moves. So that's a little preview for a little bit of our chatter later on that. We had another trade that did go down as well. We saw the Anaheim Ducks trade defenseman Ilya Lyubushkin to the Toronto Maple Leafs in another 3-team trade involving Carolina. So Anaheim in this trade has received Toronto's 3rd-round pick in 2025, while Carolina gets Toronto's 6th-round pick in 2024 because the Ducks will pay 50% of Lyubushkin's remaining salary this season, while the Hurricanes will also pay an additional percentage. So look at that. We had another deal much akin to the 1990s as well here as well. Literally happening almost 24 hours apart as well. Yeah, overall, Tom, what are you thinking for Toronto here? Good move by picking up Ilya Lyubushkin?
I think it was more of a knee-jerk reaction to Tanev being off the board. Still not that bad of what they gave up. Not the worst thing to give up for him. He did play on the first pair of Morgan Riley last night, but here's the problem. He left the game last night against the Rangers. He got hurt.
Yeah.
He got hurt. I don't know what I got to look up the injury. I don't know what the prognosis is on him, but you go out and you make that move, and now he's hurt. So it doesn't really help the Leafs for the time being if he's going to be hurt. Let me just see.
Seems like he exited with a head injury. Looks like he.
That's what I'm saying. There's no prognosis on it. Matt Rempe hit him, but at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, Matt Rempe, you mean
day.
Matt Rempe? You mean the Rempire State Building?
Listen, I'm not as sold on Matt Rempe as a lot of other Ranger fans are. It's not that I don't like
either.
the guy. Right now, all Sheldon Keefe is saying it's a head injury.
Yeah.
So this could be a problem. Concussions could keep guys out for a while. Now, what if they come back and he can't come back from this? What if he doesn't play at all in the playoffs? What if he doesn't play at all again the rest of the year? So now you just moved a third-round pick out and did cap gymnastics potentially for somebody who's not going to play again. Hopefully that's not the case. But he left that game last night, and there's been no new news on him since.
Yeah, hoping that Lyubushkin's okay. I got to agree with Tom here. It feels like a knee-jerk reaction, and Lyubushkin, a more than capable defenseman on the right-hand side, but he's not Chris Tanev. And I think Chris Tanev was the guy that Toronto had their eye on and tried so hard to make it work, but with the money that they don't have at the moment, they couldn't quite make a deal work that made sense for them. They didn't have a lot of assets to be able to give up to make that deal work, to make it comfortable for them by picking up a rental in Chris Tanev. So instead, you really don't give up too much if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs to get Lyubushkin to begin with. Like I said before, in this deal, they only gave up a third-round pick next year and a sixth-round pick this year. That's not a ton. It's magic beans. So I don't know. I kind of like the deal for Toronto. You don't give up much, but you got to hope at this point that Lyubushkin's okay. You got to hope that all is well, that he's not hurt as bad as a lot of people think that he might be. Speedy recovery to Lyubushkin as well, but overall, I hate the deal. Not a bad deal for Anaheim. I'm also just kind of wondering, could they have gotten more for Lyubushkin, especially being a right-handed defenseman in an undersaturated market, in a market that was kind of thirsty for right-handed D-men at the moment? Could they have gotten more if they sat on him for another week? So I'm wondering, I feel like this was a weaker move for Anaheim. I felt like they could have done better here, and Toronto got a little bit of the better of them. But you know what? Either here nor there. Yeah, decent move for Toronto, so long as Lyubushkin's okay. We had a minor trade just because for me, I got to just say it real quick. The Devils acquired forward Curtis McDermott from the Colorado Avalanche for a minor league player that I completely forget the name of, and a sixth-round pick in this year's, or seventh-round pick in this year's NHL draft. This is purely a response to the Rangers with Adam Rempe running wild on some teams lately and bringing old school hockey back. This was a complete knee-jerk reaction to that. This is in preparation for the next time they face off. They needed to pick up a guy who's more than capable to, go up against him if he's going to fight again, which it seems like, if a bear craps in the woods, Adam Rempe's going to fight in the game. So, it's
Matt Rempe.
Matt Rempe, my bad. Adam Rempe, my God. But yeah, Matt Rempe. But even still, it's like, this kid is, garnering quite a bit of attention from the league, and I don't mind it just because I like seeing some of that grit come back to the NHL, and I like it being a little bit more on display. But he's a novelty piece. I mean, he's not that skilled of a hockey player. He's just really big, and that's why I really love his nickname, and I love the nickname people are giving to him. It might be my favorite nickname in the NHL right now, the Rempire State Building. So, yeah. I don't hate it, but for the Devils, you give up nothing. You needed to replace Nathan Bastian, who's been out injured since that game against the Rangers. So you needed a response. And this is a guy that's going to play 3 to 4 minutes a night and only go in when he needs to make a big hit or drop the gloves with somebody. So yeah, old school hockey. It's back. I don't make the rules. It's back. Moving on from here though, we've been seeing some major issues with the Winnipeg Jets. And no, it's not the team itself. It's been attendance figures here to the point where the league has had to intervene and make an announcement regarding the lack of attendance at Winnipeg games. Tom, what do you make of this so far?
I don't like it. I think that this is Bettman trying to get the team back to Atlanta. I hate it. I hate all of it. I feel like the fans, they should show up a little more often, but I feel like that's them threatening, saying, hey, I have Houston, I have Atlanta, I have wherever, I have Salt Lake City. They want teams, and I'll put you in those cities if you don't figure it out. because, as we all know, Gary Bettman hates Canada.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, man. I don't think it's that bad to begin with, but like you can definitely there have been some major rumblings lately of like Atlanta really, playing hard to get another team in the NHL again, which I'm sorry, thinking realistically, look at how well it went last time and how well those attendance figures
Look how well
looked
it went the
last time.
first time. You failed twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Exactly. It's
Denver
like
at least got it right the second time.
Exactly. It's like I'd rather see like if you're going to relocate Winnipeg, at least relocate it within Canada. Give us a team in Quebec. Give us a team in Hamilton. Just
leave
like
it alone.
or even just leave them alone because
Yeah.
Winnipeg's not that bad a team. And they're not that badly run either. So, I mean, then again, I'm not a Winnipeg fan. Winnipeg fans can sound off down below, like probably telling me I'm an idiot and that they're actually terribly run, but whatever. I don't know. I hope this isn't Bettman meddling again. Going back to some older news, Morgan Riley, about a week and a half back, was suspended for 5 games for an old school kind of play to end a game. So if you missed it, the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs were playing. It was a tight game. Toronto emptied their net with the last 2 minutes. Ridley Greig of the Ottawa Senators took the puck for a breakaway, was far away. Toronto just let him go with it. And Ridley Greig, instead of just letting it easily go into the net, took a slap shot from point blank range. And as I have also learned in my own experiences in beer league hockey, this is a big no-no. This is one of those unwritten rules that people talk about of like, you don't do that. That's just something that's known. You don't big shot somebody like that. So Morgan Riley took major exception to this and cross-checked Ridley Greig in the face for his troubles and got a 5-game suspension for that. Tom, was this suspension too much for Morgan Riley or was it just enough?
It wasn't enough. It was too much. It's too much. Should have been maybe a game.
I agree.
Want to come down, wind up, and do that and showboat and think somebody's not going to hit you for that? That's ridiculous. On top of all of it, Ridley Greig was disciplined by Ottawa's coach and upper management saying, why would you wind up and shoot in an empty net like that? He was ripped into for that too. So, that's 5 games ridiculous. Obviously, he's playing again now, but that's ridiculous. You want to go and do that, you're going to pay the price. It is what it is.
The hilarious thing is Toronto actually played better without Morgan Riley those 5 games. Maybe he needs to get suspended more often. But yeah, it was too much. It is an unwritten rule. You don't do that. Ridley Greig was chastised as he should be because it's Bush League. It's complete Bush League. You don't do that to end a game. I learned my lesson the hard way because I didn't know that rule until I accidentally did it. So this was about a year ago. It was like the last little bit of a game. The netminder that we were playing against, it wasn't even an empty net, but like he like played the puck in the corner and it like ricocheted out of the off the boards weird and ended up on my tape. So I took a slap shot to like hit it home and their team took major exception and I'm thinking to myself, like, what? Like, if you didn't want that to happen, like, play better. And then my team talked to me after the game, just like, no, you're an idiot. Like, don't do that. And I had to learn the hard way. But this is professional hockey. You don't big shot another team like that. You don't do that. There's certain rules that you got to follow. In Morgan Riley's case, he stood up for the unwritten rules, and I think he got unfairly punished for that. I think it should have been a game, 2 games max. 2 games max, especially after the league had found out that Ottawa internally disciplined Ridley Greig. It should have been just a game or 2 for Morgan Riley. But hey, we're sitting in our armchair as our armchair disciplinarians, so we can't really say here or there on that. But those are our opinions. Sound off down below with what you think about that and the unwritten rules and all that fun stuff. We got some updates on points in the NHL, like guys hitting milestones first, and in general, Nikita Kucherov was the first player in the NHL to reach 100 points, and he did it before the 60-game mark this season. Austin Matthews is the first player to reach 50 goals, and he did it in 54 games played. All I can say to both of those statistics are just wow. Wow, wow, wow. Tom, in your mind, which is more impressive by this point?
Really hard to tell. I think both are impressive, honestly. Matthews on pace for 70 goals.
Yeah.
That could really be something. We haven't seen anybody score 70 goals since Brett Hull did it in the early 90s.
Brett Hull. I think probably one of the last ones I can think of might have been Yzerman. That might have been one of the last.
No. It was Brett Hull. He had 86 and 91. I think he had 70 something in 92. Because after that, it was Lemieux had 69 in 96. And that was as close as anybody got. Let me just check Brett Hull real quick.
I'm actually checking right now on like the last 70 goal scorers. And the last one would have been Alexander McGillney in 92-93 with 76 goals.
Okay.
Same
was Teemu
year.
Selanne as well that year.
I was about to say, same year as Teemu Selanne as well.
But that was before, it. We haven't seen that in 30 years. 30 years.
Yeah. This is
so
pretty interesting territory.
It is. It definitely is. And Austin Matthews right now has 53 goals. Hold on. I'm trying to bring him up.
Yeah, I might have him more readily available if you need to.
On.
Yeah, I got it. Here. Yeah, Austin Matthews, 59 games played so far. He's got 53 goals in 59 games. So he is he's definitely on pace for 70. Yeah, he's on pace for 70. He's likely going to win the Richard Trophy again, almost for sure.
He definitely is.
Yeah, unless you get some kind of catastrophic injury where he's left at 53 and somebody else is able to match him, which the next closest guy is Zach Hyman. Yeah. And I don't think Hyman has it in him to hit 53 unless Connor McDavid just keeps dishing in the puck. But even then, I got to say, I'm really impressed with Austin Matthews because I think about the days of like the early 90s and people can dog me all you want on this one. I just feel like, goalie technique in general has evolved so much over the last 30 years and equipment has evolved so much in the last 30 years that it is certainly, I feel like, been a learning curve for forwards to really kind of solve goaltenders over the last 10 to 15 years. And we had like a few years ago, just like an absolute dry spell of goal scorers. Like I think we had one season where the Richard Trophy winner was Alexander Ovechkin with like 46 goals in one season. Now we're starting to see more, bigger pace of play. We're starting to see more guys hit 40, more guys hit 50. But Austin Matthews already getting to 53 at this point. We haven't seen this since the 90s with Brett Hull. We haven't seen this at this type of rate. I think Austin Matthews has what it takes to do it. It's going to bar a massive dry spell from him or inconsistent play or an injury. I'm going to say right now, I think Austin Matthews he can do it. I think he can
too. He's on pace for 73. I don't know if he'll get there, but I would hope he hits 70. I really would.
In Nikita Kucherov's case, first player to 100 points thus far in the season, 62 games played, 105 points in that time as well. I think it's entirely possible that maybe by the end of the season, maybe Kuch could be around 130, 140 points, which would still be under what Connor McDavid did last year. Connor McDavid, I believe, hit 150 last year, correct?
I believe so. Just give me 1 second. I'm looking at his point. He's on pace for 138, Nikita Kucherov. So that's I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good accomplishment, but that's also at the same time, it's not as crazy as 70 goals. McDavid last year was 153. So yeah, not even close.
Which 153, we haven't seen a 150-point player since the 90s as well. It had been a long time since we've seen a 150-point player. You want to talk about putting things in perspective. I mean, Connor McDavid is 27 years old, and he is more than likely next season, barring some kind of catastrophic injury, going to hit 1,000 points in age 28, which is bananas to me. But Nikita Kucherov is nothing to sniff at either. I mean, Nikita Kucherov, he's no stranger to, getting a mass amount of points either. Back in 2018, 2019, he famously got 128 points in that season, won the Hart Trophy that year as well. Could this be a Hart Trophy year again for Nikita Kucherov? What do you think, Tom?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know, because there's just so many other factors right now with other teams. Austin Matthews can win the Hart Trophy. Connor McDavid is, I'm going to talk about him later, is on pace to do something that we haven't seen in an even longer amount of time. Yeah. The Rangers win the Cup this year. You have to fucking throw excuse my freaking French. You have to throw Artemi Panarin in there as well if they win the Cup.
Yeah, and you got to think about that. There's still one player that I still think of in my mind that I think could be above all of those players right now, in my mind, and that.
I didn't even bring him up. I know who you're thinking of.
It's Nathan McKinnon in my mind, who could be also in that conversation. 62 games played, 101 points. Do you realize that over the past year and a half, he has just as many points as Connor McDavid, if not more?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. He's another one. So as good as Kucherov is doing, I feel like we kind of seen this movie before.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at Nathan McKinnon right now, who right now has 101 points. In 71 games last year, he had 111. He's on pace to break his career best in points this year. I think he needs to be in that conversation for sure as well, for the Hart Trophy. But it's going to depend on how Colorado finishes their season, how strong they are to end the season. So
that's
we're gonna have
something
to
we might delve into later.
Yeah, something that we delve into. Real quick off the top here, Arizona Coyotes have cut Adam Ruzicka after some drug references in social media. I don't know if I'm really allowed to say this, but some references to sniffing his keys.
I let's just say and considering I just said the F word, which I apologize for.
Yeah, there were lines of cocaine. It's
idiot. What he did is idiotic. It's idiotic.
It's one of the dumbest things you could possibly do. It's like, come on, you're live on social media. You clean up your act. Clean up your act. That the league is going to be looking at things. That if you have any social media presence whatsoever, that you're not immune to somebody saying, hey, what was that in the background of your video? And the league took a look. Arizona took a look and just you're
an idiot.
You're done. It sucks to see, but I hope it's a learning lesson for him. I hope he's able to figure it out, get his life together, because I know that is part of the reason why some players end up entering the player assistance program to begin with. So I hope he gets the help he needs if he does have a problem. And overall, just tough situation there. Lastly, that I'll talk about right now, because this is going to segue into wow or worrisome. And for me, it's certainly not a wow right now. The New Jersey Devils have been apparently really trying the goaltending market over the past 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, ever since the All-Star break. They couldn't get a deal done for Jacob Markstrom from the Calgary Flames. They apparently called them over the All-Star weekend. They had at least some preliminary deal in place of what things would look like, and it was too rich for their blood. And there's word going around that the Devils also recently, over the past week, turned down a deal that would see Juice Saros from the Nashville Predators be traded from Nashville to New Jersey. But apparently that trade was bonkers, and they asked quite a bit in that trade for him. Tom, I'll just ask you, because this will segue us, from our, news of the day to wow or worrisome, because the Devils are a wow to me, in the sense that, wow, I didn't think a team could be this bad right now, because this is, for how talented this team is, it is so frustrating for how disappointing that they have been over the last month and a half. Tom, is the solution goaltending, or is it far deeper than that?
little bit of both. I don't know if at this point, if you bring a goaltender in, it's going to really turn their season around.
No,
I know their GM was sitting there saying that this West Coast road trip was going to gouge the rest of the season, and they didn't have a good road trip.
No.
They didn't have a good road trip. And at this point, with you being so far out of the race, Philadelphia is not showing any signs of slowing down. Detroit and Tampa are keeping pace for the 2 wild card spots. Is it worth making a big splash right now when the signs are pointing to not making playoffs? Is it worth it? I'm not so sure. If Philly was faltering, if Tampa were faltering, if Detroit were faltering, and there was that chance to get in there and make some noise, I'd be all for it, but they're not. And everybody in the world, except for that Devils homer, Greg Wyshynski at ESPN, sees it.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't make any sense. Do I think – now, you brought Tyler Toffoli up before. Do I think they should trade Tyler Toffoli? Answer is no. I think they should keep him. I don't think they should trade Tyler Toffoli. But making a big splash at this time for a goalie with your 3 competitors in the Philadelphia Flyers, Detroit Red Wings, and Tampa Bay Lightning all keeping the pace, I don't think it's a good idea. And that's just me.
Yeah. I'm going to speak on behalf of hopefully right sane of mind, non-biased hockey fan, but also putting my Devils cap on for this one. Yeah, there's no way about it. This has been a very disappointing season on many levels for Devils fans. We came into this season thinking that this was the year. And I think about it in hindsight for me, thinking, in my frame of mindset, you were coming into the season losing 2 veteran defensemen that you knew you couldn't keep, and knowing that more than likely this season you were going to have 2 or 3 rookie defensemen starting at this point in the season, namely Luke Hughes, Kevin Ball to start the season, but then also Simone Nemets also joining in mid-season after, and this was part of the story this season, the injury of Dougie Hamilton, which I think has impacted the Devils far more than a lot of people believe. Before that injury came up, you had Devils fans that were saying he's terrible on defense, he's not helping the team. I disagree completely. He was the only thing keeping that power play together whatsoever. When he went down, that entire power play went down. The Devils went from having the best power play in the league to the absolute worst. And that's why Dougie Hamilton partially was so important. He was also far more defensively responsible than a lot of people realize as well. And missing him has been a massive void on defense as well. His presence not being there has been catastrophic for the Devils. And then you had other injuries that popped up throughout the season as well. Jack Hughes going down for a number of games didn't help. You had to suffer through the injury bug, which still feels relentless to this day. And you have so many you have so many fans that, in their infinite wisdom say, oh, this is on Tom Fitzgerald. He didn't build a good team. You can't factor injuries totally. You factored for a right-handed defenseman getting hurt. That's why you have Simone Nemets. You factored for a left-handed defenseman getting hurt. That's why you had Santeri Hataka. You factor for a goaltender getting hurt. That's why I have Nico Dawes. But when all of those different players just end up just failing and just systems fail and just all systems in general just fail, it just feels like they keep tripping on their own 2 feet. And also, I don't blame Tom Fitzgerald whatsoever. This team is set up for the future. You knew that you were going to have to figure it out and navigate through rookie defense, and you're going to take your bumps and bruises, and you know that there's going to be growing pains, but you accept the growing pains because in the next few years, stuff will get better. But I think in my own hindsight, it was premature for myself to think that the Devils are going to be ready for big time contention this year. Plus, don't even get me started on the Michael McLeod fiasco in the middle of this year. That didn't help things at all. But the solution, it's not easy. I think the Devils should revisit the goaltending market in the offseason. I think doing it before the end of the season doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because what you'd have to give up in the middle of this season for one of those goaltenders, whether it's Markstrom or Saros, it's a high ask at the moment. And maybe that loosens up a little bit in the offseason, just ever so slightly. In Nashville's case, it loosens up a little bit because you know that Yaroslav Askarov is knocking down the door as we speak, trying to get that starting position. So you know he's the goaltender of the future for Nashville.
The way they're playing now, though, they're not trading anybody.
No, they're not. And they're on now 8 in a row for Nashville. For Calgary, they've been keeping steady play, trying to pry Jacob Markstrom from his steady play. Not an easy ask either, even though you have Dustin Wolf knocking down the door as we speak to be the starting goaltender of the future, which he is there. But that's why I think revisiting this market in the offseason is better. If you want to make a stopgap move to give some relief to both Nico Dawes and Akira Schmid in the meanwhile, maybe you pick up a cheaper option. Call up Seattle and see what they want for Chris Driedger. Call up Montreal and see what they want for Jake Allen. And just see what the market is on more affordable goaltenders at the moment, just to stop the bleeding a little bit, because there's not a lot of hope left in this season. You just got to, dust yourself up, collect your losses, figure it out, reassess things in the offseason. I think the first thing that needs to happen, and I unfortunately think this needed to happen at the end of last season, I think it's Lindy's time. I think you need to move on from Lindy. I don't know. I don't think it makes sense to move on from Lindy mid-season right now, because what realistically does that solve at the moment? It doesn't really. And who are you going to hire in the interim? Is it going to be Travis Green's team in the interim? Maybe, maybe not. You've got some candidates out there that could make sense in the offseason to give a call to and give an interview to. Just off the top of my head of different coaches that are floating out in purgatory right now. Craig Berube, who we just last saw with the St. Louis Blues. Bruce Boudreau, who we last saw with the Vancouver Canucks. I don't like this idea, but Gerard Gallant, who was just recently with the New York Rangers, which Tom has opinions on that one. I have opinions on that one. I just think it's Lindy's time. I think the Devils, the only thing that I feel like Tom Fitzgerald should have done last year that he didn't, that is a failing on this point, was he should have encouraged Lindy to ride off into the sunset, retire, be a part of his front office staff, and given the team to Andrew Brunette at that point. Andrew Brunette should have never left the New Jersey Devils. You see the success that he's having in Nashville and how well that team is doing now. And that's exactly a product of the leadership of Andrew Brunette. We saw how well the Devils did last year too. I'm starting to think that could have been a lot of the success of Andrew Brunette and how he, helped run certain schemes on this team. The unfortunate truth is a coach's voice starts to wear on a team. I think Lindy's voice has overstayed its welcome. I still appreciate Lindy. I think he was a fantastic coach while he was here. I think he just overstayed his welcome, unfortunately. So I think the Devils are going to need to really reassess in this offseason as well. You've got some interesting contracts that you got to figure out in the offseason too. I say you keep Tyler Toffoli. I think he's been a goal-scoring revelation for the Devils, and I think it's worth to keep. You got to make a decision on Dawson Mercer, because he's an RFA this season, and he has not had a strong season at all. And I'm wondering if you give him a bridge deal at this point, if you don't trade him for something bigger. And then next year you got to give a good contract to Luke Hughes, who's going to be looking for his big boy upgrade next year. And then the year after that, you have to re-sign Simone to Mets. So it's going to be an interesting next few weeks for the Devils. But I also feel like that maybe there's one or two moves that the Devils can make in the interim that could lead to something interesting. They don't have a ton of cap space, but maybe for the remainder of the season, maybe it wouldn't be the worst idea to at least maybe get an upgrade on defense to get more defensively responsible players. Call up Calgary and see what they really want for Noah Hannafin. because Hannafin has expressed interest in going to New Jersey. So if he's willing to sign some kind of friendly contract, it could at least be worth giving a call to Calgary for that. But yeah, I'm gonna end my rant with this. I'm a disappointed Devils fan. I'm gonna keep watching, and I'm gonna be frustrated. I'm frustrated with the play recently. I'm hoping that some heads roll in the offseason, and yeah, I'm frustrated to say the least. Tom, I know you got some positive things to talk about with the Rangers stuff.
Well, I like the 10 in a row. I like the 11 in the last 12. What I don't like is the 5-on-5 play of Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. Zibanejad's got 1 goal since the new year, 5-on-5. Basically all their production's coming on the power play. So many games, Laviolette is playing musical chairs with the right winger, whether it be VC, whether it be Kako, or whether he throws Panarin on there for a couple of minutes. They need to figure this right wing situation out. And if it has to be the deadline, then it has to be the deadline. It's got to get done. There's a guy in Detroit right now wearing number 88 who they could have had for a couple of dollars and wouldn't have to give any assets up for. I watch how Kane plays with the Red Wings. I think he would have been great for the Rangers if they would have given him another shot. Right now, water under the bridge. But right now, in my eyes, and I like how they're playing. I like they're in first place. They have to get the first line right wing situation figured out. That's got to be number one priority. The third line center's number is big too. Number one priority is that first line right wing spot. That's got to get done because right now, and it showed against the Leafs last night, every goal is coming from the Trocheck, Panarin, and Lafreniere line. And you're going to have one line that's carrying your offense. You're not going to get far in playoffs. I'm sorry, you're not. At the same time, I like that the D is playing solid. I like that Igor found his game again. But for everybody who's saying sit and stand pat, they sat and stood pat in 2012. They didn't go get a guy like Jeff Carter. And maybe that's why Henrik Lundqvist never won the Stanley Cup. A couple other teams who are wowing me right now, I guess you could say. The Leafs, who beat the Rangers last night, were wowing me for a while, but now they're not anymore. They had won 8 in a row. They're still 9-1-0. I still like what the Leafs are doing. Move on to the Red Wings as well, who I mentioned with Patrick Kane. The Red Wings, I like what they're doing as well. But at the same time, the Red Wings at one point had won 8 in a row. Now they're 6-4-0 in their last 10. They blew their last 2 games. I liked what the Red Wings are doing. Another team that's wowing me, who we just spoke about, Nashville Predators. Predators now, in their last 10, 8-2-0, 8 wins in a row. And for all the talk about trading UC Saros, Preds aren't trading anybody. If anything, the Preds are probably going to be a buyer now, or they're going to stand pat. But the Preds, wow, just wow. And they destroyed the Avalanche last night, 5-1. Now let me move on to my worrisomes. The Devils, you said it all. What more can I say? You said it all. Yeah. I thought they'd be a first or second place team this year, but you said it all. There's a lot that's got to get fixed. I don't think it's time to blow it up. You got to go through this summer, though, and figure things out if they don't make it. So let's move to the West. Vegas Golden Knights. Defending Stanley Cup champion, Vegas Golden Knights. 3-6-1 in their last 10. I know Eichel's injured, but if they don't get it together, they're going to find themselves a wild card team come game 1 of the playoffs if they're not careful. Another team, Colorado Avalanche, who got shellacked by Nashville last night. Colorado, a little bit better in their last 10, 5-4-1. But right now with Colorado is this: Makar, great. McKinnon, great. Georgiev, pretty good. Right now, Colorado's going to find themselves open on the road in round 1 if they don't get it together. And they really got to figure out this second-line center issue at the deadline. Hopefully they can. Because since Nazem Kadri has left the Avalanche, they haven't resembled anything close to that Stanley Cup championship team from 2 years ago. That's it for me. Don't know if you have any other teams you want to talk about.
I mean, I kind of yielded all my time talking about the Devils, but yeah, I agree with all your points. The Rangers have been, on fire recently, have done really, really well. They're one of the best teams in the Metropolitan, if not the entire Eastern Conference. I mean, Nashville's been on an absolute tear as of recently, and it's been doing a really, really nice job as of late. Yeah, I'll be positive with those, but Not much anywhere else in terms of here. But hey, I'm hoping that Devils tickets go down a little bit given the circumstances. So yay. But yeah, we're gonna move on from this. I need a little bit of a palate cleanser. Let's talk about players that have been doing really well. Let's talk about our players of the week. Let's talk high performance.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
All right, Tom, who do you want to highlight here for players of the week?
Patrick Kane. 7 points in his last 5. 7 points in his last 5.
Yeah.
They could have LTIR'd Hedel. They could have waived Wheeler. They could have waived Bonino. This could have solved every problem they needed back in December. They didn't do it. Homer alert here. Alexis Lafreniere, 5 points in his last 5. Point per game player. Lafreniere's coming into his own this year. And hopefully this is a springboard to something much bigger in the next couple of years. Now, Connor McDavid, 10 points in his last 10. Granted, but let me read you the stat line here. 1 goal, 9 assists. McDavid is on pace to do something that hasn't been done in a long, long time. Get 100 assists in a season. Will it happen? I don't know. Can it happen? Yes. That would be something. To see him get 100 assists in a season. That would be something.
Yeah, that would be really cool to see. We haven't seen that, since Jumbo Joe or no?
No, not even close. I think it was either Gretzky or Mario. Was the last time.
I'm actually curious. Last 100 assists season NHL. I'm actually curious. Let's see. Yeah, you're right. Last one would have been Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, you're right.
Figured that. Wayne Gretzky used to make a habit out of getting 100 plus assists.
89-90. Yeah, no, it's true.
Yep.
Yeah, I still love that stat of like if you take away Wayne Gretzky's goals and just leave his assists, he's still first in all time for points.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is just bananas to me. Just absolutely bananas. For me, I'm gonna highlight a few players here. I mean, first of all, Connor McDavid, I got to highlight here as well. Since February 13th, he has been on an absolute tear. He's just played so well. Last 7 games, 13 assists in that time. Yeah, Tom mentioned it. Could he be the first player since Gretzky to hit 100 assists? That would be something to see. That would really be something to see. For Winnipeg, Josh Morrissey, 14 assists in his last 7 games as well. He has 14 points in that time, so all coming off of assists. He's starting to heat up again. He was in the Norris talk last year, and if he keeps playing like this, I think he could be back in that conversation. And it's been a pretty stacked conversation for the Norris Trophy this year thus far. It's been really, really interesting. Other players that have been doing really well, Kevin Fiala for the LA Kings, 12 points in his last 7, not including what he did today. Other players that have really impressed me over the past week as well. I mentioned his name before, Zach Hyman. Last 7 games, 8 goals in his last 7 games. He's played really, really nicely for the Edmonton Oilers as of recently. Yeah, Artemi Panarin, 10 in his last 6 as well. He's done really, really nicely. Nathan McKinnon, 10 in his last 6 as well. Nikita Kucherov's been doing better and better as well. 11 points in his last 7. And talking about defensemen like I was before, but Roman Josi, part of that Nashville success lately, 11 points in his last 7 games, 7 assists in those last 7 as well. He might be joining that Norris conversation as well towards season's end. We have legitimately like 5 or 6 defensemen that we could be talking about for the Norris Trophy come season's end. Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, as usual, who's basically a mainstay in that conversation now. Josh Morrissey, Roman Josi. I mean, you've got a number of defensemen that could be in that conversation. And I think that needs to be something that we start talking about in the coming weeks as well.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be coming back at you next week with our trade deadline reactions. We'll likely hit you with an episode after the trade deadline is coming past. For those that don't know, the trade deadline is Friday, March 8th at, I believe, 12 p.m. or 4 p.m.?
I think it's 4 p.m. Usually never 12 p.m.
Yeah, I think it's like 12 p.m. Pacific time, technically. But even still, Yeah, we'll be coming with an episode with that next week. But our question today actually circles around the trade deadline. And Tom, I'll ask you first: who is the hottest target ahead of the trade deadline, in your opinion?
See, I want to say it's got to be a goalie, and I want to say Markstrom or Saros. But here's the problem: I think you could probably take Saros out of the equation right now. So it can be Markstrom, but I think teams are backing off of Calgary right now as well, because I don't think people want to give him a king's ransom for a goalie at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring it up because I listened to Neil Smith, former Rangers GM, the other day saying nobody who's ever made a deal for a goalie has won, and I'm inclined to agree with that. So it leads us to kind of a hodgepodge of guys like Vladimir Tarasenko, Frank Vatrano, Jordan Everly.
Frank Vatrano should be a much bigger target than people realize. The dude has 29 goals this season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Jordan Everly, Alex Wenberg, guys like that.
Adam Henrique is another guy that comes to mind for guys that need center help. The real blue chip in my mind for forward, if they're actually willing to part with him, like the rumblings have been, Jake Gensel of the Pittsburgh Penguins, which that would make no sense to me if Pittsburgh does that. Why even sign Erik Karlsson in this past offseason? Why make all those splurgy moves in this offseason if you were going to trade the guy that you're building around for years?
I'm going to quote the actor Burt Young, because they live in a fairy tale world where the air don't move.
That being said, Sidney Crosby has had an absolute renaissance year. He's playing some of the best hockey of his entire career.
Sure, he is. Year. But the Penguins as we know it are done.
Penguins as we know it are done, but could they actually have like one more year of true contention before they're just like, you know what, wrap it all up?
But what contention? They didn't even make it last year. The year before that, they lost to the Rangers in 7. The year before that, they lost to the Islanders. The year before that, they haven't been a legitimate contender in my eyes in 6 years. The last time the Penguins really were a legit contender to me was 2018.
Yeah. And realistically speaking, I mean, Pittsburgh would really need to pick it up in general right now. They're 2 points behind New Jersey right now. And you heard me rant about New Jersey. So, I mean, Pittsburgh's probably going to be ahead of them by the end of the week anyway. So let's be real. But yeah, I mean,
it's picking it up. It's the same thing as Washington. It's come watch these heroes play before it's too late and they don't play anymore.
Pretty much. It just wouldn't make sense for me for Pittsburgh to cast off on Jake Gensel. It's just like, why make the moves you made in the offseason to begin with? I got to think Noah Hannafin's also probably a bigger trade target for some teams that really need an upgrade on defense as well. He could be a guy that teams are going to call about as well. But yeah, you got a number like as Tom mentioned, like a real odd mix of guys that could be, getting phone calls and just trying to figure out where they're going to go. But we're going to figure out where they all go.
It's not the arms race we had last year. Definitely not.
It's definitely not the arms race we had last year, but we're still going to have plenty to talk about next week, reacting to the trade deadline, which means that we've come to the end of our episode. But guys, make sure to subscribe down below, youtube.com/IID Sports. Join the conversation down below. Comment on what you guys thought on all of our thoughts from this episode as well. We'd love to join the conversation with you guys down below. And while you're there, hit the like button if you guys like our content as well. And hit the bell notifications so that way you know when our content goes live every single time we drop new content. And if you're still on X, and I'll forget it, I'm calling it Twitter, but follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much. We greatly value all of your support. But let's watch more hockey. Time to end our rambling session and my sad session, as I'll call it. But until then, I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been yet another episode of NHL on I80 Sports.